Good morning. Welcome in. We are the Out of Bounds Show. We're brought to you by Dancing Rabbit Golf Club, top 100 golf course, the Azaleas and the Oaks. Book your stay and play right now, your guys' trip. They've got the sports book, Philip M. Steakhouse, all at the Golden Moon in Pearl River Resort. The Out of Bounds Show is brought to you by Dancing Rabbit Golf Club. Also driven by your next Ford Bronco at Mack Hike Ford, I-55 North in Jackson. This is ESPN 105.9 The Zone. Big weekend in Starkville as they will celebrate the 2014 Mississippi State football team that went to number one in the first ever college football playoff rankings. That team was led by Dan Mullen and had some unbelievable players on that team, including Dak Prescott. Dan and Dak will be in Starkville this weekend. So there'll be a lot of star power, and it's good to see them. It will be good to see them back and hanging out in Starkville in Davis-Wade Stadium. We want to welcome in the former MSU coach, Dan Mullen, to the show on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. Dan, good morning. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing this morning?
Man, I am doing well. Are you and Megan and the crew, the kids, excited about coming back?
Absolutely. We're excited. I haven't been back, obviously, for a game in a long time, and even really on campus to all the facilities. We've been back to Starkville to visit friends, but haven't been around campus and around any of the athletic department since I left, except for the one game we came back. But we're really excited to get back, see everybody, see a lot of friends, and really excited to get to see a lot of former players as we all get together this weekend.
How many? I can't imagine, coaches with all the former players. How many guys do you text with and talk to over the course of a calendar year, Dan?
Oh, you have a lot of different ones you see at different times. I don't know that it's a daily or a weekly occurrence, but you'll hear from a lot of different guys. As the head coach, it seems if there's issues, questions, or problems, we get a lot of those still. Like, hey, coach, what about this? Can you help me with this? Or what are your thoughts on this situation? I get more of those than anything else, but you know what? Now it's great to see because now you're getting messages and hearing about how everyone's kids are doing. Guys that have played now have families of their own, and you're hearing about how their families and how their kids are doing.
That's pretty cool. Dan Mullen on the Out of Bounds Show. Let's talk about. Look, you had an unbelievable run. You started the bowl streak. New Year's Day bowls, going to number one. You drove a lot of players to the NFL. I know you're proud of the graduation rate and so on too. But when you think about that 2014 season and you think about like August going into it, did you ever imagine that team could do what they could accomplish what they did, Dan?
You don't really know what the ceiling's going to be, but we knew we had a really good football team. And when I mean that, we're going through training camp, and it was kind of funny. I think we were picked to finish near the bottom of the SEC. So you know what? You don't have a lot of scrutiny around you. Everybody's kind of like, they're not going to be very good this year. We finished the previous year on a 3-game winning streak, winning 2 straight overtime games to become bowl eligible, and then winning the bowl game. But we had a lot of guys back, and one thing we knew, if we could stay healthy, we'd have a chance at a great year. We had a great group of senior leadership on that team. We had a veteran offensive line. We had 2 deep on defense where we could really roll a lot of players through, and we had some young firepower on offense with some talent. So, when we looked together, the whole thing was like, hey, we're a very talented group. We have all the right recipe to win, and if we can come together and stay together and stick together as a team, we're going to be very successful. And that team really did. The leadership, that team stepped up, really kept everybody together. And, it was an unbelievable run and an unbelievable season.
There's another team in the state that found out how difficult it is to win in Baton Rouge. Not a shot at them. They have a good team. But when you go down there at night, weird things happen. I went down there as a kid several times and saw all sorts of things go down, both for MSU and against MSU. That year, y'all went down there, you and Dak, and you mentioned that senior leadership, and y'all won that game. Did you feel like that was the turning point or something else, Dan?
You know what? No, I think that was a big one because we went down there to play them on a Saturday night. I think, there was a stretch in the middle right there where we played LSU, Texas A&M, and Auburn. And I think they were, at the time someone sent me something, it was only the fifth time in college football history a team had beaten three top 10 teams in consecutive weeks in the regular season. So we knew we had that stretch coming up in the middle of the year. The win down there, I remember, as you said, crazy things happened. We were blowing them out in the third going into the fourth quarter. It was, we were up by 3 to 4 scores, and late in the game, and it was crazy. We kind of we even had backups in trying to get ready for the next, because we knew we had a big game the next week, and so, but all of a sudden they hit like an 80-yard touchdown pass. We fumbled the very next play. They hit a 60-yard touchdown pass. So it was like back-to-back, like bomb touchdowns, and then they recover an onside kick and score again, and we have to recover an onside kick and then knock down a Hail Mary at the end of the game as they put this frantic rally together. As you said, crazy things happen. But I think the win there just proved to that team that we are good. I think we started out of the gates pretty solid. We're undefeated, but when you start going and you playing a top 10 team on the road, and the way we were able to dominate that game early, even though we didn't finish, I think that gave our guys a lot of confidence moving forward. And then we did the same. We dominated Texas A&M. We jumped out to a huge early lead against Auburn and ended up winning by both of those games by 3 scores against top 5 teams and or top 10 teams, I think they were at the time. Auburn was number 2, I know. So I think that certainly gave us confidence that we could have a pretty special season.
He is Dan Mullen on the Out of Bounds Show, ESPN 105.9 The Zone. Dan joins us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. Dan and his family will be back in Starkville this weekend to celebrate the 2014 team as they went to number 1 in the college football playoff rankings. And he mentioned that senior leadership, Beckwith and Dylan Day and so many guys that had been there for a while. Dak, I think at that point, was a redshirt junior in 2014. I want to talk about that for a second. Dan, now that you're on TV and you have an opportunity to see all these quarterbacks, and there's some really talented guys around the country, underclassmen and seniors, how important was it for Dak to sit and redshirt, sit a lot his redshirt freshman year, and then Tyler Russell, I think, got a concussion against Oklahoma State in 2013, and you had to insert him into the lineup, but he had been there a while. He had been through a million practices. He had had time to develop, and he stayed all the way through 2015 as a fifth-year senior. How important do you think that was for him to really help him in his NFL career, but also when you coached him?
Well, I think it's huge. In today's football, you see guys, everybody's jumping into the transfer portal nonstop. And Dak was a guy that we knew he had all the things that were hard to coach. He had the leadership, the mental, physical toughness, very intelligent, good decision maker. But he had to really just develop his skills as a quarterback and as a player. And, I think it is, I give him a lot of credit of sticking around, and it was, as you said, that 2013 year was really interesting. Tyler Russell goes down, Dak gets a chance to play. He comes in, has a lot of success. He goes down with a weird injury, with his shoulder and his arm, and Tyler Russell comes back in, and then Tyler gets hurt, and Damian Williams had to come in to win a game for us. And it was one of those where we're juggling guys back and forth. And then Dak comes in with the the miracle win in the fourth quarter off the bench against Ole Miss to win that game for us when he wasn't even really supposed to play. So, but I think his development, and you saw him. I think we talked when I talked even when he was getting to the NFL. Every single year he improved. So he had a tough decision to make after that 2014 year. He was a household name. He had such a big season. We were graduating a bunch of players, and so the next year we weren't going to have, we're losing a lot of the O-line and a lot of guys moving on that were senior leaders. I think he made the great decision, which was to look at his game and say, I have some more development to do next season. And the funny one is, his senior year, he didn't get as much of the hype, because we weren't the number one team in the country. He didn't get as much of the attention, but he was a much better player because so much more got put on his shoulders. And if you recall his NFL career, I think that is, he went to the NFL. He's a fourth-round pick for the Dallas Cowboys. In preseason camp, Tony Romo gets hurt. Dak gets to start a preseason game. Now, if he goes in and falls on his face in that game and doesn't perform, we might never hear from him again. They're not into a lot of second chances in the NFL. And I think the ability for him to stay for 5 years, he knew our offense inside and out. And when you do that, you're involved in the game planning. When you know the offense to that level, you're spending your time studying how you're defeating defenses, which is graduate-level quarterback play, which is what they want in the NFL. So when he got there, his opportunity, when he stepped on the field, he was prepared. And we talk about this with guys today. I think a lot of teams around the country are having to kind of dumb down quarterback play with all the transfers because you don't have a guy for very long. So, hey, we just got to learn the offense. You're getting to more remedial stuff. Where a guy like Dak that knew everything about, he knew why we were doing everything. He knew he could call the game himself, if he wanted to on the field because he knew it inside and out. He knew how defenses were going to play him, how to set protections to defend against blitzes. And I think that maturity, that development prepared him for his moment that came very early in his career, in his NFL career, and gave him that opportunity to perform at a high level, and has obviously led to his unbelievable career he's having with the Dallas Cowboys.
That's a remarkable story. He is Dan Mullen on the Farm Bureau Insurance Guest Line. Dan and his family will be back in Starkville this weekend to celebrate the 2014 team that went to number one and had a great year. You're listening to ESPN 105.9 The Zone. This is the Out of Bounds Show. You spent 9 years. Is it crazy to look back and think you were young when you got that job. I think you were, 36 years old or something?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Now there's some young guys. I think I was the youngest head coach at the time in the country.
Golly. And so the first year you come in and you upset Ole Miss, and then the next year you go to the Gator Bowl. That 2010 team was a special team, too, with K.J. Wright. You got everything you could get out of Chris Relf. You had a couple of running backs, some dudes that went on to the NFL. You had Fletcher and Boyd. And, those guys, you went to, let's see, I was at that game, 52-17 or something over Michigan. I mean, that was a big deal because they hadn't won in a long time. That was kind of a springboard season for y'all, wasn't it?
Well, I think it did. I think, that team that was a fantastic team. And that team beat Florida on the road, beat Georgia at home, beat Michigan in their worst bowl loss in the history of Michigan football, which is, we know which is pretty special. And one of the things I think we learned that year is we could be good at Mississippi State. I wish, I think we ended up with 4 losses, all the teams ranked in the top 12 in the country. That's how tough the SEC West was that year. But I wish, I think if that talented group had maybe come a year or two later after we had won some more, we might have been even at a higher level. Because I think there were some guys learning that, hey, we can win here at Mississippi State. We can be a special football team. Now, the defense we had on that team was one of the most talented defenses to be around with, as you mentioned, Pernell McPhee, Josh Boyd, Fletcher Cox,
KJ, Wright. Wow.
You had John Banks in the secondary. You had some players on that team. And that was one of the things that made it special. We had a veteran offensive line again. And one of the things I've always tried to do is make sure we're putting our quarterback in the best position to do what they do well and win. And we were really, really able to control time of possession, run the football on people. But I think that was a big moment not just for our team and also the fan base and maybe everybody at Mississippi State, but said, hey, we're allowed to be a great team. We're allowed to go play in New Year's Day bowl games. We're allowed to be nationally ranked, and we should expect to be that way. And I think moving moving forward, I mean, we spent a lot of time as a top 25 team because it changed kind of the mindset, that thought that, hey, we expect to be a top 25 team, and we need to perform that way. I know our fan base certainly believed it. They showed up and gave it the support, made Starkville one of the hardest Davis Wade Stadium, one of the hardest places to play in the country. And I think that boost really kicked off all the success we had there.
He is Dan Mullen on the Out of Bounds Show. So, we talk about you a good bit on the show. I mean, we covered you for 9 years in Starkville, right? And so you go back and you compare this and that. How much – so you've got a great life. You're doing TV. You look like you're having a blast with Joey Galloway. Who's the studio host in there with you, Dan?
Matt Perry. Matt and I will be on the call tonight. We have Boston College at Virginia Tech. We're in out here in Blacksburg, Virginia for the Thursday night game. Matt and I will be doing that tonight.
Oh, very cool. You're in Beamer country. Okay. All right. So how much of an itch do you get this time of year through like December 5th, knowing all the openings that are happening? No, I know you don't have to say what. I know you could have already taken another job if you had wanted to. You obviously you're in a good spot and so on. But how much of an itch do you get to get back into coaching, Dan?
Well, I think it's interesting. There's a lot of things you miss, and there's some things you don't miss that come with it. And to get back in, so the things you miss, you always have that itch. But to ever get back in, if I do get back in, it is something you're all in. It's not something, hey, I missed some of these things, I'm ready to get back, or something. You're either all in or you're all out. And, it goes beyond, I think, in the coaching world, it goes beyond just me. One, I have to be all in every aspect of your life because it consumes your life. But also, Megan and the kids have to be all in, ready to go because it's a major effect on their lives as well. And so, it'll be interesting. I never say never. That all of a sudden I'm going to sit there and say, hey, my mind, I am completely, your heart and your mind, 100% all in, ready to go back to coach. The family's ready to go back and coach. And, and then it's got to be also, to me, the right situation for us to go back and get into. And I think that gets into that. I enjoy what I'm doing right now as well. I enjoy the TV side of things. We have a lot of fun with our crew and how we do things. So, but you never say never. So if it all lines up and it hits, you'll see me back on the sidelines one of these days.
All right. I don't know which way I would bet now after you answered that. I'm trying to think if I had to put $100 on it, is Dan Mullen going to coach again, or is he going to do TV, enjoy life, and play golf? I think I'm leaning you're going to coach again, but I could be wrong. So if they made me bet $100 right now, I'd say Dan Mullen's going to take another head coaching job, but I could be wrong. All right. Well, I will say this.
It'd be interesting to see what the Vegas odds are on that. Because they're always right. I noticed that. They never lose.
That's right. Dan Mullen on the Out of Bounds Show. He and his family will be in Starkville this weekend to celebrate the 2014 football team that he coached, and he did an unbelievable job in Starkville and at Mississippi State all the way around, developing players, sending players to the league, and bowl games and big wins, both at home and on the road. Okay, so you're doing a good job on TV. You look like you're enjoying it. I think y'all have got good chemistry. Whether I'm at home or in Starkville or whatever, I catch some of that show throughout the day. How much are you enjoying TV?
It's a lot of fun. You know what? Hey, the one thing, it's a little less pressure than that coaching life. Yeah, I think I'm still undefeated. I've never lost on TV. It's the funny one. Like, even if I say sometimes even if you mess up or say something wrong, everybody kind of forgets anyway. Not like if you call a bad play on fourth down. They remember that one for a long time. But We have a great time. I get the opportunity to call in the Thursday night games. You get to come here. It's going to be a great environment. You get the game day feel, the excitement of game day at Virginia Tech on a Thursday night tonight is going to be wild. Getting to call the game, it's great. Then we get to go in the studio and host the studio shows all day Saturday for ESPN. Do the college football final shows, a lot of fun, and the wrap up the whole day of college football. It's a lot of travel. I do get to travel a whole bunch, but the one thing I guess that's different is in the fall you're going nonstop. And people say, "Hey, what's it like? How's it different?" Well, we play a road game. I'm on the road every week. You never get a home game. You're on the road either calling a game Thursday and then in studio in Connecticut over the weekend. So you're traveling an awful lot. But in the off season, you're home a lot. I mean, there's I get most of my time off in the spring, and so I get to enjoy the family time that way as well. But it's a great life, and I really enjoy it.
So how's Cannon's basketball playing career going?
Well, it's going pretty well. It's going pretty well right now for him. He'll be a freshman this year, so he gets his first varsity action. We're living at Reynolds at Lake Oconee over in Georgia, and so he wasn't allowed to play on the varsity team last year. But he'll be a starter on the varsity team, and he plays for plays in that 3SSB. I've learned a lot now. I didn't know about AAU basketball, being a football guy my whole life. So I've learned a lot. He plays on the Atlanta Celtics, which is a 3SSB Adidas sponsored team out of Atlanta. And I'm going to tell you what, you go see some athletes. When you go look at their starting lineup, I have a feeling they're kind of getting the team together this year for the 2028 grad class. And you're looking at these freshmen in high school, all freshmen in high school, and the starting lineup, I think this year is going to be 6'7", 6'7", 6'6", 6'4", 6'2", and 6 foot. These guys are all freshmen, dunking, shooting everywhere.
Good grief!
He's a 6'4" shooting guard wing, so hopefully he keeps growing. He's got that mom side of the family height. So you got to keep him shooting and having fun that way.
I love it. Hey, Dan, it was so much fun to catch up. So glad that you and Megan and the kids are coming back to Starkville this weekend to celebrate your 2014 team, and we appreciate your time today, and have fun tonight calling the Virginia Tech game in Blacksburg.
Always will. I'm excited. I can't wait to see the crowd at Davis Wade. I know it was rocking when I was there. That Texas A&M game was a huge win for us in 2014, so I expect a great crowd and an exciting environment. Coach Levy's got them going, and I know they're going to play hard. Can't wait to watch the Bulldogs play. Appreciate it, Dan. Take care. Thank you. Dan Mullen on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. You're listening to ESPN 105.9 The Zone. That was a fun interview. For sure. He's excited to come back to Starkville this weekend, Dan and Megan and the kids, and I know people will love seeing them around town. The show is driven by your next Ford Bronco and Ford Expedition at Mack Hike Ford, I-55 North in Jackson.